And I think you said there's a second type of
Yeah.
failure.
That's promoting a loyal internal person beyond what they are ready for. A
Mhm.
great developer, for example, software developer, long tenured, trusted, good person. Now he gets promoted to development lead. And now the projects stall. The team under him is frustrated because being excellent at a craft does not automatically mean you can lead the people during that craft.
Bernd, ownership is one of those words that comes up constantly in founder conversations. I hear it all the time. My people just don't step up. They wait for instructions. Nothing gets done until I push it. And the default conclusion is usually we need to hire better people, different people, people who are more driven.
That conclusion is understandable, but in most cases, it's wrong. And that matters because if you act on the wrong diagnosis, you'll keep cycling through people without solving anything.
So let's start there today. Why don't teams take ownership?
Because ownership is not a personality trait, it's a system outcome. If the environment doesn't support ownership, people won't take it, regardless of how motivated or talented they are.
That reframe is important because most founders are essentially blaming the soil while they're the ones not watering it.
Exactly. I think that's a good analogy. And here's the uncomfortable part. After at most 2 years, every founder has exactly the team they deserve. The team mirrors the system the founder built.
What do you mean specifically by system out?
Well, ownership emerges when three things are in place simultaneously: clear responsibility, clear decision authority, and clear expectations. If one of those is missing, ownership breaks down. Not occasionally, structurally.
And my guess is that in most small and mid sized businesses, at least one of those three is fuzzy at any given time.
Yeah, it's fussy. Usually it's more than one. And often the founders themselves don't realize it because in their heads, everything is clear. The problem, it's only clear to them.
Yeah, I've been there, done that on that one. So take me through each of these one by one. Start with responsibility.
If people don't know what they are truly accountable for, not just their tasks, what they should do, but the outcome they own end to end, they will deliver activity, not results. They'll do the work, but they won't feel ownership for whether it worked or not.
I've seen that pattern. Someone can be extremely busy and still have zero accountability. They completed everything on their list and the project still failed. And somehow it's no one's fault.
Yeah, exactly. That's a responsibility design problem, not a performance problem.
What about decision authority? The power to actually make decisions. Where does that break down?
And this is where most founders unknowingly create the biggest obstacle. If someone is responsible for a result but cannot make the decisions that affect the result, they will escalate every time because that's the rational response to an impossible situation.
You're describing something I notice in myself too, honestly. The instinct to stay close to every decision, and especially in areas where the stakes feel really high.
Well, yeah, that instinct is, I would say, natural. Founders build these businesses by making good decisions. But at some point, holding that authority stops being a strength and becomes a bottleneck. The team learns that the decision will come from the top anyway. So why think it through themselves? Let me give you a concrete picture here of what this looks like in practice. I'm currently working with a founder in India, very successful. 200 employees, operations across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. He's the best engineer in the company and the primary contact for every major client. The company's reputation is built on his great competence. And that's exactly the problem. The same strength that built the business are now preventing the next growth step. He can't scale himself. And his team has learned that if anything gets complicated, he'll step in and fix it.
So, what I'm hearing from that is that the team has basically outsourced judgment and decision making to him.
completely. And he's rewarded that behavior, not intentionally, but structurally. Every time he steps in and solves something brilliantly, he confirms to the team, don't decide, escalate.
So the escalation by the team becomes a habit.
It becomes trained behavior. The system rewards asking over deciding. So people ask again and again. And there's another dynamic at play here. Many founders actually enjoy being the expert. I'm guilty of that too when I had my first company. We like being asked. It feels good to have the answer. It feels good to be the expert. We explain, we solve, we rescue the project. That feels great, I tell you.
Yeah, that dopamine rush of actually rescuing the project.
Correct.
And then we sit back and we complain that nobody takes initiative. So I think what you're saying is the behavior that we find most frustrating is the behavior that we actually shaped, right? That's the irony.
Yeah, that's the irony. You're absolutely right.
So what about the argument that delegating simply doesn't work? I hear founders say, I've tried it and it failed.
That's a legitimate frustration. And it usually comes from two types of failure. First, hiring someone from a large corporation, expecting them to perform the same way in a small company. I see this constantly. Someone comes from a well-known company, makes a strong first impression, and then struggles completely because the environment is fundamentally different to a large company. There are systems, support structures in a huge corporation, a whole organization around them. In a small company, you need to build those things yourself, or you have to do it by yourself.
And I think you said there's a second type of failure.
That's promoting a loyal internal person beyond what they are ready for. A great developer, for example, a software developer, long tenured, trusted, good person. Now he gets promoted to development lead. And now the projects stall. The team under him is frustrated because being excellent at a craft does not automatically mean you can lead the people during that craft. That's a totally different skill. Grab a copy of my free checklist for leaders at fipodcast.vip/OSVA. Again, that is fipodcast.vip/OSVA.
And I was just going to say, and when that happens, the founder concludes delegating doesn't work, when actually the selection or the preparation didn't.
That's exactly the point. The lesson isn't don't delegate. The lesson is you can't just hand over responsibility. You have to build it.
So I think that's really a key distinction. But how do you actually build it?
I think there are 5 things that matter most. Let me walk through them here. The first is feedback and learning. Ownership only develops where there is psychological safety. We spoke about that in a different episode. I think it was 2 weeks ago. People need to know that mistakes are allowed and that the expectation is to learn from them, not to avoid them entirely. But here's where most founders go wrong. They explain instead of asking. For example, they call someone in, describe what went wrong, and tell them what to do differently next time.
But that feels helpful, but it really isn't, right?
Yeah, it's not, because the person learns nothing. They just receive instructions. The better approach is questions. What would you do differently next time? What's your takeaway from this? And the most powerful one, what would you do if I weren't here and you couldn't ask me? That last question forces independent thinking, breaks the habit of escalation at the root. And
I
just let me say that because I think it's so important. A lot of leaders say, well, but I don't have the time for that. It's much quicker if I give the instruction. Yes, that's true. But then your employee will not learn anything.
And what you just described there, I guess most founders talk far more than they listen in those conversations.
Yeah. To be honest, if you're a leader, if you're a business owner, most people, they like to talk. And you like to take action, etc. So if you're doing most of the talking on the other side in a staff conversation, it's not a staff conversation anymore. It's a lecture. And lectures create dependency. not development. If you switch that in your head, that you say, okay, I don't want to lecture someone, but I want to help someone, then you rather go with questions than with instructions.
Oh, what's the second condition?
Clear. Individual accountability. Every task, every goal needs one owner, not the team is responsible. That means no one is responsible. And this requires the founder to change their own role fundamentally. You can't be the central problem solver anymore, not the one who steps in when it gets difficult. That role has to end.
That's really psychologically hard for the founder because that role is often tied to their own identity.
Very much so. The shift is from leading through doing to leading through people. You become more like a mentor, a sparring partner, a coach for your senior team. You give them room to decide, room to fail, room to grow into the role, even when you're not standing next to them. And that's a completely different leadership mode. And it feels uncomfortable at first because you're not fixing anything directly. But it's the only way the organization scales beyond you.
So, what about the third condition?
That's transparent measurement. Progress has to be visible through clear KPIs and regular reviews based on facts, not impressions. This is often missing in founder-led businesses. Things are evaluated based on gut feeling or loyalty rather than actual performance data. You need to be able to see clearly how your leaders, your departments, and your teams are actually performing.
Yeah, and without that, it's very hard to have honest conversations about accountability.
Right. And it protects you too from making decisions based on who you like rather than what the numbers show.
So, we're getting close to the end. What about number 4?
That's consequences, real ones in both directions. Good performance gets recognized and rewarded. Weak performance gets honest feedback and support. And if someone consistently doesn't deliver in a role, a decision has to be made. Either move them to a role that fits or let them go.
And that's exactly where a lot of founders freeze, especially with long tenured, loyal people.
It's one of the hardest things because founders often carry guilt. This person was with me from the beginning, but keeping someone in a role they can't handle doesn't help them, and it doesn't help the company. Either the person grows into the role within a reasonable time, or the role needs someone else. That's what accountability actually means at the leadership level.
And number 5.
Number 5, the ownership mindset itself. This is about how people respond when things get difficult. Let me give you a concrete example. A sales rep promises a client they'll send a proposal the next day. To finalize it, he needs information from the supplier. Now, the supplier doesn't respond to his email. Now, many people at that point fall into what I call active waiting. They do nothing and tell themselves, I couldn't do anything. The supplier just didn't get back to me. Technically true, but completely unhelpful, right? A person with real ownership thinks differently. They call the supplier. They try a different route, a different contact there. They find an alternative way to get the information. They don't wait for someone else to solve the problem. They use everything available to them to keep their commitment to the client.
It's the difference between I did my part and I own the outcome.
That's it precisely. Ownership means not waiting for someone else to fix it, but doing everything within your power to fulfill the responsibility you accepted.
But what about motivation? I hear a lot of we need to get people more engaged, more excited about the mission.
Well, motivation matters less than people think. You can run all the team events you want. You can write inspiring messages, build a clear culture deck. And if the structure is wrong, it fades within weeks. Structure beats motivation reliably. Culture can amplify a good structure. No, absolutely true. But it can't compensate for a bad one.
Okay, one last question today. How long does this actually take?
Unfortunately, longer than people want to hear. Not weeks, not a few months, often years. The founder I mentioned from India, he's in the middle of that transformation right now, learning to move from controlling to trusting, from leading through doing to leading through people. It doesn't happen in a workshop. It requires a clear plan, requires defined KPIs, the right people in key roles, and patience with your team and with yourself.
I think what you just said there is worth sitting with for a moment, because I think many founders expect a structural change to produce results the next quarter.
Yeah, and then they give up too early. That's not how it works. The process is slow precisely because it's not just organizational. It's personal. It's both. The founder is changing how they work, how they think about control, what their role actually is. And well, that takes time.
So the uncomfortable truth here today is if your team doesn't take ownership, it's probably not a people problem. It's a design problem. And in many cases, a founder's behavior problem. The structure doesn't support ownership. The decision authority isn't real. And the leader's behavior is inadvertently teaching the opposite. The practical starting point is two honest questions. What needs to happen for you to be able to let go? And who on your team needs support to actually take responsibility? Real leadership means making others strong. That's the hardest shift in entrepreneurship and the most important one. For founders listening, the starting point isn't a difficult conversation with your team. It's an honest look in the mirror.
Well said, Brian. Thank you very much. Subscribe for free today at fipodcast.vip/xbzv and join thousands of leaders receiving exclusive and actionable leadership insights you won't find anywhere else. Again, that is fipodcast.vip/xbzv.